All right, we're going to talk about Zoom for a minute. It is a little bit complicated and a little bit tricky in terms of how we want to set up Zoom in a way that is the most functional and makes the most sense and is the most user friendly for our students. So I'm sorry for any complication and confusion, but bear with us and understand that this really is for the best for your students. So the easiest way to access Zoom, your Zoom button here should be working, or Zoom in the sidebar. And when we click that, it launches the rich LTI, the Zoom LTI for us. And we're going to schedule our synchronous learning meetings. And I like to just name them something like Fire Synchronous Learning. And then we're going to set our time, for our first meeting. And then this is where we start to diverge a little bit. We want to set this to just be an all-day meeting because we're going to use the one meeting for all of our subjects. And how you make that a little bit less complicated for your students in terms of how they're getting in and out of that meeting, I'll show you in a bit. So we've got our meeting set up. We give it a password. And then we are going to make it recurring, weekly. And weekly lets you choose which days it happens on. So that's why we pick weekly. And then you pick the days that you know that's going to happen. And then just do this 1 week at a time. The thing about doing it 1 week at a time is that you will then generate a new meeting ID for the following week. So if a student decides to share, or a parent decides to share the meeting ID out, you have security in your classes by doing next week's meetings as you prep for next week, and a new meeting ID comes out for those. So however it makes sense in your workflow to schedule it out, but this lets you just do 1 week at a time and keep that meeting ID somewhat secure. So if you are a core class, you can do all 4. If you are an encore class, you can do 2, or you can do 4 if you teach the same core, or if you teach the same course to a different section. But it gets a little hairy there, and I'm going to talk about that momentarily. So now that you've set that up, save. And we want to go back to our calendar. And the cool thing about this is that it drops in the meeting and the meeting link for your students right into the calendar. But it only drops it in when that meeting starts, and you've got all of your kids and they've got a different schedule. So how we can help them is by editing our Zoom meeting in the Canvas calendar to actually reflect our calendar. And the drawback of Canvas here is that this calendar does not allow us to make recurring events in the Canvas calendar. So we have to end up making the meeting each time. And so it creates a different event for each meeting. And then we need to go in and actually adjust the times in ourselves. So this was the 14th meeting. And then I actually have to set in my start times. But once I set in my start times, those sections will only see their specific start time, and in their calendar they can click the link and go straight into the meeting that way. So we do that for each setting. If you are an encore teacher that did 4 times a week, you will want to delete the one that's on Tuesday probably and set the sections this way so that these ones move over. It's the same meeting ID, so it's fine, but that's how you're going to want to do it, and it is a little bit of an extra step